office, and he was all going to talk about science, and all of a sudden he saw this book on his shelf, Swamiji's book, and he said, "Oh, you read that?" And he just picked it up and said, "This guides me every day." And and he said, we forgot about our science and we were talking about all this. Because it seems his grandfather or somebody used to follow Chinmayananji, and then he got hooked to it totally. So you will be surprised. And the third story, these are all true stories. One of our friends, she said, from Chinmaya Mission, she said she went to some remote African country somewhere, I don't remember now the name. She said it was so small, some island somewhere. And she forgot her Bhagavad Gita because she used to always carry, because she reads every day. And she was like feeling so uncomfortable. So she said, I was passing by a bookstore and I thought, maybe I'll ask them. They're not going to have it, Firbi, she went inside. And she said, in India we have this book. So she tried to explain, say, you want Bhagavad Gita? So she said, yes. Which version do you want?
Wow.
That's some remote place had all this. And then one time I went to Barnes and Noble. Now they are shut down, these stores. And I saw their section. There were at least 30 of them. Different people, giving translations and things like that. So what you're saying, it appeals to
At Barnes
so-
and Nobles,
There's
they
lot
had
of
it,
interpretation.
at Barnes and Nobles, they had it age appropriate also.
See?
I saw that they
Uh-huh.
had it for kindergartners. They had it, and they had those little cartoonish things to
Yes.
explain the
And
Gita.
here, whoever has this book, it has all the different. It told you how many languages it got, and there's one shloka they have translated into so many languages here, and then there are some somewhere it has different people's quotations, what they said, and I think the American philosopher, the most famous ones, have read it, and they kind of got influenced by it. And the one who dropped the atom bomb, everybody knows that story, that when the big explosion happened and he looked back, he could only quote one shloka from Bhagavad Gita. He could not relate to anything else. That how it is, or like thousand suns, it comes in, I think chapter 10 or 11, it comes under that shloka. So there are so many people who are influenced by it. So
Even Dr. Wayne Dyer in the modern this thing.
Yeah. The two
So many, but Dr. Wayne Dyer mentions in his
Emerson
book.
and Thoreau, they both, exactly. So it has a tremendous appeal because it really is not talking about any religion, like you said. It is just saying the laws of, nature, our mind and things like that, how it works. So it's not telling you that you have to follow this, nothing. It's just telling you the science. So that's why it's called science and philosophy both. That's how it is. Okay. So
I'm saying this book is also teaches you how to live, how we should live our lives.
oh yeah, in fact, our Swamiji, he calls it Art of Man Making. He wrote, you've probably read that, he did 2 books because it's like how to become a good human being. Exactly, you're right.
And also they say if you can't, Bhagwan says you can't do it this way. Okay, you're not getting it this way. Do this way. Do
Yeah,
this way,
yeah,
do this
exactly.
way.
The
It doesn't tell you one way.
Yeah.
It tells you.
In
many
fact, there was
ways.
one very cute thing, a story I heard. I thought that was so touching. So there was this man who wanted to study Bhagavad Gita, but he didn't know how to read or write. So he said, "Oh, mera kya hoga?" So one person said, "Okay, I will teach you." So वो Bhagavad Gita लेके आया और उसने ऐसे रखी. So this man, kept looking at it, then he started crying. So his teacher said, "तू रो क्यों रहा है भाई? तू इसलिए रो रहा है कि तेरे को पढ़ना नहीं आएगा अभी? इसलिए रो रहा है?" कहता है, नहीं, मैं तो इसलिए रो रहा हूँ कि भगवान जो है ना कितना दयालु है, देखो वो भक्त के लिए ना ड्राइवर बन गए.
Yeah.
But he learned the whole sar of life.
Exactly. देखो भक्त के लिए वो, I thought that was such.
I know.
So
he got the whole thing.
So
in
what
his
I'm
own simple
exactly.
way, so beautifully.
So anybody who wants to connect with Bhagavad Gita will definitely get something out of it. I think that's the whole thing. Okay, here, this everybody who has, please open this. Prayerful meditation, Gita Dhyanam it's called.
Concept page.
It's like you-
page 1 itself.
Page 1 after all this.
After all, after this big fat thing.
Oh, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Does Gita Dhyanam is there in this or not?
What is your
It
page number?
may not be.
My page number says 1.
Yeah, I'll help you guys.
I can do it for you.
It should be over.
Yeah, they done.
I'm sure it's
Huh?
different.
Hey.
No.
Okay, here.
Send details.
It's here. And whoever has new books, you got it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
This should be just the part about. Going to the chapter 1. Okay.
So let's chant. I'm going to do, you can follow. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam. Om Parthaya
Pratibodhitam
Bhagavatam
Bhagavatam
Narayanena Swayam
Narayanena Swayam
Vyasena Gratitam Purana Muninam
Vyasena Gratitam Purana Muninam
Madhye Mahabharatam
Madhye Mahabharatam
Advaitamritavarshinim
Advaitamritavarshinim
Bhagavatim
Bhagavatim
Ashtadashadhyayinim
Ashtadashadhyayinim
Amba Tvamanusandathami
Ambattvamanusandatami
Bhagavad Gita
Bhagavad Gita
Bhavadveshinim.
Bhavadveshinim.
Okay, the Sanskrit Om. We have already studied Mandukya, the monosyllable indicative of Supreme Brahman. Parthaya Pratibodhitam, with which Parth, Arjun, was enlightened. So his another name is, very popular name is Parth, because he was the son of Pritha. And also it has a very deep symbolic meaning, because it's like earth ko bhi bolte hain, Prithvi bolte hain na, Parth. So it's like Purush and Prakriti. He represents the us. That's why it is matter. Bhagavatam, by the Lord. Narayane, by Narayana. Swayam, himself. Vyasen, by Vyasji. Gratitam, incorporated. Purana Munina, by the ancient sage. Madhye Mahabharatam, in the midst of Mahabharata. Advaita Amrut Varshinim, the shower of the nectarian philosophy of Advaita. Bhagavatim, the Divine Mother. Ashtadasha Adhyayinim, in the form of 18 chapters. Amba is blessed mother. Tvam, the. Anusandadhami, constantly meditate. Bhagavad Gita, O Bhagavad Gita. Bhavadveshinim, which is an antidote to the experience of change, or the destroyer of samsara. So here I just wanted to mention this Divine Mother that it's talking about. It was Gandhiji who made that comment about Bhagavad Gita. He said that this is a Divine Mother for me, because my own real mother, she passed away, and she had the body and she passed away. But this mother of mine, I can go my entire life, surrender to her anytime, and she always gives the answer back to me. That's one sentiment. And the other one, he said also that whenever because that the kind of great jobs he accomplished, God has freedom and all that. So it's not like, I'm sure he used to come across situation where, what do I do now? So he said, I always went back to Gita, it always gave me answer. So these are his sentiments. Because they are all, I think, in this. Okay, so what we're going to do is, each time, this is like, has many verses, this Gita Dhyanam. So we will do one each time, so that way we can. Okay? So let's, padhiye. यहाँ से Om O Bhagavad Gita. Everybody has this? Yeah. Or you can share it with me.
I can share it.
Yeah, sure. Because she's going to be reading, that's why.
Om, O Bhagavad Gita, with which Partha Arjuna was enlightened by the Lord Narayana himself, and which was incorporated in the Mahabharata by the ancient sage Vyasa, the Divine Mother, who is prenatally showering the nectarine philosophy of Advaita in the form of 18 chapters upon thee. O Blessed Mother, I constantly meditate. You are the sure antidote to the rocking experience of change, the destroyer of
Sansar.
Samasara. So M is silent?
Yeah.
Sansara.
Sansar, yeah.
Okay.
Rebirth. So here, he's going to tell the importance of a prayer, because that's why in us, in our philosophy, I'm sure others also, before you start anything, you pray because you want to tune your mind to the higher. That's why, but he's going to explain it. Yeah.
It is usual in the tradition of the Aryans to pray to the Lord prior to the beginning of any auspicious undertaking, whether spiritual or secular. These 9 stanzas, usually attributed to Sri Madhusudana Saraswati, are chanted by students devoted to the study of the Gita in India before they start their daily lessons. Anji, can I continue?
Yeah, because everybody understood.
Oh, okay.
It's just simple. Yeah.
Okay. Usually, our mind is in a state of disintegration and exhaustion due to the daily tussles, competitions, and tensions of life, and it is pitted and exhausted. Thus, when the mind reaches the study room, though it is efficient in the marketplace, it does not prove itself equally efficient to meet the subtle arguments to be met with in philosophical discussions. The instruments of feeling and understanding need a general cleansing and adjustment. This is achieved generally by selecting the early period of the dawn for our studies and by physical preparations such as a bath, the atmosphere of the prayer room, and the presence of the revered guru, and so on.
So we know this, right?
Yeah.
That's why we kind of to adjust our mind to that. Okay.
Even then, once in the puja room or at the study table, we still need to make some finer adjustments in our mental makeup, bring our entire faculties into play. We can find a beautiful example of what I say in modern laboratories. A scientist must have his laboratory assistant who would adjust the eyepiece and the object piece of the microscope for him, and yet the assistant would have adjusted the instrument only according to the assistant's own vision. There may be subtle differences in the powers of vision of the experimenting scientist and assistant, thus necessitating some still finer adjustments. These fine manipulations are to be made by the scientist himself in order that he may observe the slide for himself the best. The general methods of sadhana and the fire of anxiety and urgency felt by the seekers to understand Gita may adjust the instruments of their feelings and thoughts, but an integration between the mind and the intellect still remains to be achieved. This fine adjustment is gained by the seekers by singing these 9 stanzas with thorough appreciation of their full significance and import.
So everybody understood the analogy is so beautiful that we have to adjust according to our own mind, and these, because if we know the meaning, then we have the reverence for it and all that.
Without reverence, respect, and faith for the very textbook in hand, no serious study can ever take place. Therefore, the very first stanza for meditation is dedicated to register our reverence and express our adoration to the Divine Mother Gita herself. It is said that the Bhagavad Gita is a scripture in which, as in the Upanishad, there is a glorious teacher and a sincere student. Here, Lord Narayana himself is the teacher, who is teaching not a highly evolved student of the Upanishads, but an ordinary prince of the realm, an average man, and an intellect riddled with 1,000 desires and anxieties, as in any of us, Arjuna. The Pandava prince, though generally famous and known as Arjuna, is also named Partha in Mahabharata. Thus, the very first line indicates that the teacher was the master of masters, and no better qualified man could be found to give us a discourse upon the true way of living.
So everybody got it that here is saying Bhagwan ne khud aake usko bola, and the meaning of Arjun is the one Arjavam they call it, the one who is straightforward, जिसमें कोई छल कपट नहीं है. You know, like we have the straightforwardness. That's his quality, and that's why Bhagwan gave him the knowledge. So if we want to gain knowledge, we have to become like a
Chal kapat se.
Chal kapat se dur. Yeah.
Again, as ordinary man is rather frightened of the very subject matter of philosophy, since it is his experience that when a great teacher talks to a great student, an average person can only sit, listen, and adore the talks, but can never be able to understand the matter and be benefited by it. This difficulty will not be there in the Gita. It is an indicator that it is as it is indicated that these discourses have been addressed to a below average student, and therefore we hearing these discourses would be highly benefited by these easy educative talks. It is possible that the Gita is a talk of the Upanishads between a mastermind and an average man at the Mahabharata time, but the theme being
Transcendental.
transcendental, it might have been misreported. This conversation, which is supposed to have taken place in Kurukshetra, might have actually taken place elsewhere and at a different period of time. Since we have not ourselves directly overheard it, we have to depend entirely upon the good sense of the reporter.
Because somewhere, there are, obviously this is a Sanjay talking, right? So he's seeing it, he's not on the battlefield himself. That was as number one. And then one of the Swamis was saying that the way Bhagavad Gita, in his interpretation from wherever he studied it, that 10th day, Bhishma Pitama fell. Meaning, wo arrow pe jo gir gaye the. So after he fell, Dhritarashtra got a big shock. Because he unko ichha mrityu ka vardhan tha, and he was the one who was carrying that whole army, and uski wajah se main jeetunga वगैरह वगैरह. So now he said, oh my God, कैसे हुआ ये सब? Then he asked Sanjay. फिर संजय ने शुरू से उनको बताया. So there are slightly different versions, but those things are not important to us. The content is important. Yes.
It has been indicated in the second line that we have a dependable correspondent to report to us the Gita, which was sung for the first time before the very first arrow was shot in the Mahabharata war. Vyasa, the ancient seer, recorded and incorporated it in the center of his classical work, the Mahabharata. Every word here is important, and the words bend down under the weight of their own heavy significances.
So we talked about that each word has
Amazing.
power packed, and it has very, very deep. Yes.
Vyasa, the father of the Vedas, who first collected, edited, and published the Veda text, and who thereafter gave us the dialects of Vedanta and his Brahma Sutra himself, a great man of realization, was indeed very well fitted for the job. This ancient seer had both the mastery of theoretical science of religion, Hinduism, and also practical experience of the Supreme.
That means he was himself self-realized. And now you were asking, Brahma Sutra kisne likha? Ye Ved Vyas ji ne compile kiya Brahma Sutra ko.
Not only had he reported this conversation in the most enchanting lyrical poetry of the Gita, but had also found it worthy to be incorporated in the masterpiece of his matured age. The greatest classical piece of the world, the Mahabharata, the Gita, occurs in the Bhishma Parva in the Mahabharata and occupies almost the geometric center of that wonder classic. In fact, any student of the Mahabharata will willingly accept that the whole saga serves as a fitting background for the jewel of the Gita to shine out.
We already discussed all that.
So, Ved Vyas wrote Gita too?
Well, it is part of Mahabharata, yeah.
Yeah.
He's the one. So it's a conversation between Krishna and Arjun in the middle of the war. But we in fact, the way they use the word, they don't use the word right. They use the word compiled. Even Vedas, they don't, because they call it apurusha, meaning it's not come from human. It's not like my idea or my this thing, because in that meditation, it got revealed to them.
Yeah.
So that you already know. So that's why we always say he's a compiler of Veda, he's a compiler of, but he's the one who we can say the word wrote, but I just wanted to clarify that it is not a Mangadan story. And then another thing is that there are two things in our Shastra that considered itihas, means history. One is Ramayana and one is Mahabharata. There are two considered as history. So it actually happened. That's how they believe. Okay.
Even if an omniscient being had discoursed to benefit an ordinary man, and even if a great mastermind had reported it and found it good enough to give it an important place in his masterpiece, we of the modern age might not have felt at all inspired unless we knew that the subject matter was worthy of our attention. In the third line, it is described that the 18 chapters of the divine song discuss the immortal goal of oneness, which is the theme of Vedanta, the Upanishads.
So you see that how important it is. The divine song discussing the immortal goal of oneness. which is the theme of Vedanta. And the Upanishad, yeah.
By the realization of this goal, the sorrows and limitations suffered by an ordinary individual in his transactions with the world outside through the instruments of his body, mind, and intellect are dried up, and the individual gets himself released to an ampler field of freedom, at once divine and joyous.
So this is a very important line. Now, you know what, this is the benefit of
The whole.
of the whole thing, that we will get, through our limitations of sorrow like we always, when we are talking to children in our class, we start a class with, what is everybody looking for? What do everybody want in this world? No matter what we do, whether we do business or we do whatever, we want happiness, peace. And do we want happiness and peace and all just little bit? No, we want it all the time, eternal. So I think this is what we can get from it. So it doesn't mean that circumstances will change. That is not what they're talking about. You will get in your prarabdha, then bad and good will come. But how you feel inside your head, that's where Bhagavad Gita can help you. That no matter, and I think we have gone through those verses where Krishna Bhagavan says, the heaviest sorrow will not shake you. So I think that's the goal over here. So I think it's very, very amazing goal, right? We all want to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In the last line, the Gita is addressed and approached as a mother, and this is to be understood as very significant. The Gita mother, the divine womb that gave birth to the universal religion, is the one to whom the children of any age can always confidently turn, expecting but total forgiveness and complete love, even after they have committed a million outrageous acts. Similarly, here the Gita, the textbook of life, is approached as our mother because she never gives up anybody as completely lost. And everyone who lovingly approaches her courtyard calling out, Ma, 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 can be sure that she will accept him in spite of all his past crimes and mischiefs.
So this is another very powerful statement, because there is a verse in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna Bhagavan said, no matter how many sins one has committed, if you turn to me and start studying Bhagavad Gita, I mean not exact words like that, but that is
मेरी
a kind of,
शरण में
yeah, वो तो last वाला था, उसके पहले ये verse आता है कि you be sure that you will be going on the right path and you will reach there to the moksha. So I think that is so psychologically satisfying. So nobody is disqualified from this
Anyway.
ever. Yeah.
So I didn't ever know Gita was referred to as Ma.
Yeah, so here,
Yeah,
ये
I
है ना
learned
ये
for the
No,
this,
first
because in the Gita they tell you there is no other.
Yes.
It's just creator, just manifested. There's no other.
but what the reason
Over
I'm
and over
saying that
again.
here in this verse he's calling him mother, because then see, when we have this kind of understanding, we automatically have the reverence then. So every
Yes.
time we pick up the Gita, we already bring ourselves to that. That's why इन्होंने कितने अच्छे अच्छे words डाले हैं पूजा में
explain
इसके,
किया है.
भाई इसको माँ की तरह देखो,
Yeah.
you know.
Gita adoration is not accomplished by a merry ritualistic worship of the textbook. The divine song is a textbook discussing a way of living to be lived and experienced. We generally live by our own convictions, and our convictions, so are our thoughts. As our thoughts are, so are our actions. The Hindu spiritual study accomplishes this necessary revolution in the intellectual levels and thereby carves out our thoughts into a more healthy pattern. These thoughts get projected out into the world as actions. Thereafter, our nature makes us mastermen in facing all our challenges in life. Constant remembrance of the way of life and the ideal goal of existence, as indicated in the Gita, is therefore the surest and the best method of revering and respecting Mother Gita.
So just telling you to just don't read it and understand, but practice it, and then you will see. So I thought this was really nice
Very
to begin with, and then we will next time we will do the
And
second
there was an
one.
important point that one girl, she was studying psychology and she was an Indian but raised abroad. And how she got attracted to Gita was she studied all the philosophers and all that. And how much of a psychology you do, you really can't change a person. But here in Gita, she found that Lord
Yes.
Krishna was able to change Arjuna's mind. And that is such
Very
an important
powerful.
thing, very powerful, and was able to make him do a different behavior. And that, she said, is the most powerful, because he gave the Divya Gyan, and he was able to
Yes.
do that. He was able to transform his mind, which is very difficult. No psychologist can do that.
No, this is
Absolutely.
because the whole thing is scientific. It's based on science. It's something that you can experience and know yourself at first hand. Like when we take a yoga class, we don't have to say the benefits of yoga. Say after the class, you decide for yourself.
Right. So I think the point that you brought, that's exactly what we're going to read, because Arjun comes and we have to understand Arjun's character. He was not weak. He was none of that. He was like the most powerful man here. And then, but when he was faced with a particular situation, he had a nervous breakdown. And if we look back in our life, you will see that we also come across that kind of juncture so many times in our lives. And kabhi na kabhi to aaya hamare paas aisa juncture. And when we are teaching the kids, we are giving them this example that you have studied for this test, and you have studied whole year, and you are a master of that subject. And when you sit down to give the exam, all of a sudden your palms start getting sweaty and things like that, because you want to get A plus. And that anxiety can cause, and all this attachment to certain things can cause. And just if you remove all that, you can ace the exam anyway. Or another example was given by this one Swamiji, who was another Swamiji from Chinmaya, and he gave the very good example. He's saying it's like a doctor. He's a master of everybody. And then he wants to do this operation. So he cuts open this person, and then he said, too much blood is flowing. I can't, this is not a good operation anymore. Imagine the analogy that he comes to a point and boom. And the reason that happened to him, because it's like he had identity crisis. He forgot who he was. He just thought that I am the grandson of this fellow, or and अपनी वो divinity तो बिल्कुल ही भूल गया था. But even in the worldly sense, he forgot his duty, because a soldier, this war was not his personal war. That's another very important thing to remember, because Krishna Bhagwan is not saying कि oh तुम्हारा cousin कुछ गलत करा जाके उसको मारो. That's not what he's saying. He was a soldier, so there was a huge stake behind him. Everybody had already done everything. All the peace talks and everything was done. And it came to a point, and at that time he was just a employee of that country that he has to perform, and that's when he so we have the context we have to constantly keep in mind. Otherwise I've heard people say that, ahimsa paramo dharma, then why is Krishna Bhagwan telling him to fight? If we forget the context, everything goes. So we have to, that's why it's so important that Bhagavad Gita, in what situation was it told. Okay?
And I think Gita is just not about the Kurukshetra, it's also about how we distinguish what is good and bad. It's a constant battle between us, or the mind and the intellect.
Yeah, all those things, as we read, you're absolutely right, it'll come.
The good
This is a
and bad.
symbolic war that goes on, and Kurukshetra is actually our life. It's
I was
our
gonna say,
kshetra,
it's-
जिसमें हम जो अपना जो काम करते हैं ना रोज, उसको कुरुक्षेत्र समझ सकते हो आप. तो इसमें मैंने क्या किया, this is very long, so I just picked out certain paragraphs that we will read, and rest of us we can read, because otherwise we will not move forward fast. But just wanted to tell you that here it says Mahabharata is even called the fifth Veda. इतना उसको importance दिया हुआ है. मेरा phone,
Yeah.
silent.
I have a bunch of these bookmarks if anybody wants them. They're welcome to use them. I just take cards and cut them and make them into bookmarks.
So here.